want to take a step back. With the final 10 minutes, I want to go over my favorite guidance, my favorite directions for Jewish life on different fronts in relation to ourselves, in relation to Hashem, in relation to Torah. Some things that I'm passionate about, things that I've picked up over all the years that I think are very valuable and helpful. Okay, this exercise that we did, I wanted to show you, number one, how to read the book. Number two, I wanted to show you how to take a topic and how to go through Mishlei and see that topic from different directions. I think that could be valuable. Here are just like some big ideas of foundations of Jewish ethics. So I'm going to go through them out of order because I'm going to go through ones that I just really want to share with you and make sure I share them with you. So here's the first one. And again, this is my interpretation of it, and some I'm taking out of its context. I'm explaining how I understand it. Okay. So the first one is it's not all or nothing when it comes to Torah. I'm very passionate about this. Okay. As much Torah as you get, as much halacha as you follow, it's the better, in my opinion. But I do not think that if you don't do all of it, you're doing nothing. Each part is valuable. Each step is good. Each step helps you grow and expand your consciousness and become a better person. So I think that this verse, when it talks of the Torah as a tree of life, you know this. This is from Mishlei. So a lot of the verses from Mishlei appear in our Siddur. This is one of them. It's also from Mishlei. There are many verses in our Tanakh from Mishlei. So how am I connecting this message to this text? I think this language of sin, and I talked about this once in our class. I think seeing the Torah as a tree of life is a very valuable model, because the tree of life, there are many aspects of the tree, and it says you have to grab onto the tree. Now, some people are going to grab onto the fruits. Other people will grab onto the leaves. Other people will grab onto the branches or the roots. The Torah is a tree of life, and we have to grab onto it however we can. And each way we grab onto it, we're rewarded with life. So maybe you should, ideally, if you can grab onto the tree and the branches and have it all, that's great. But each component brings us life. And I think that's the message of like how Torah can be valuable in terms of all of its aspects. They all bring us life. So I think that's a valuable message of Torah is not all or nothing. Let's do another one that I find very valuable. This is one we've been talking about all year long, back and forth, okay? And I want to share, I think this is very powerful. Each trait can be used for good and bad, for bad and good. So death and life are in the power of the tongue. Those who love it will eat its fruit. So death and life are in the power of the tongue. We have one tongue. It can speak good, it can speak bad. That is a principle in Jewish ethics, okay, when it comes to other people. It's a very valuable principle. Nothing's like the way I was taught it. Traits aren't black and white. There's no trait that's fully bad. Maybe you disagree with this, but this is a little bit different than how I was taught when I grew up in some Western ethic from like in high school, as how I was taught it. It's not like there's a trait that's bad or good. It's about context. So the tongue could be good or could be bad. Similarly, is sad being good? Well, sad on Purim is not good. Sad on Tisha B'Av is good. Take a trait, laziness. Is laziness good or bad? Laziness seems to be bad in the book of Mishlei, but laziness sometimes is good. When would it be good? Give me an example. When you're tired. Shabbos afternoon to give yourself rest. Or sometimes when it comes, if you're overworked, to give yourself time. I say every trait, I want to argue, you disagree, but anger can be channeled to good or to bad. There's just ritcha deraita. There's like anger, a passion for Torah that sometimes the sages have. That could be a valuable thing. Kindness. Kindness, is it always good? Sorry, it's not. Being kind to your enemies is not a good thing. Sometimes people get that mixed up, right? So every trait in Judaism, it's not a black or white thing. It can be used for good or you can be used for bad. And so it's not like we have, like every shortcoming can also be an attribute. So it's not like a black and white thing where you create a list. It's basically, how am I channeling this trait to good or to bad? And it can be for all of our different traits. If you think of another one, being happy. Being happy is great, but if you're overly happy at a serious work meeting, it can be annoying and frustrating and hold things back. So yeah.
Be dishonest.
So you want me to be honest with you about that, or no? So sometimes being dishonest. So what do you think?
Every bride is beautiful.
I mean, so yeah, sometimes I guess it's sometimes it might be valuable to be dishonest in the sense of I don't know, like sometimes like with anger. So we said you overcome anger by overlooking what's going on. Sometimes that can be helpful. But sometimes being too honest with yourself, you see everything, or you're with your spouse or with your friend, and you see the truth for what it is. Sometimes you have to push aside the truth for a moment in order to be able to deal with them in a positive way. Maybe you're in a classroom and kids are doing something wrong, and you know it's wrong. Well, overlook it for that moment, right? So I'm saying this honesty can be valuable as well in terms of you applying that in your life. I'm not saying that you should do it all the time. I'm just saying it has its place. Yeah, I think that's yeah.
No, I'm just gonna say, I mean, we even have examples of if you, it is sometimes justified to be dishonest with a dishonest person.
Yeah.
When David Amalek was fleeing from the Philistines, he wasn't honest, he feigned that he was insane and he wasn't mad, he was, but he was doing it to.
Correct. I mean, I have a class on that as well. Like, when is it okay in Judaism to be dishonest? There are some cases, right? There's like 5 cases where it's okay to do that, but that's for like another class. Okay.
Next year.
Maybe next year. Yeah. I want to do at least one from each category. So I want to do self now. And this is, I'm going to go back to what Lynn said. We're going to go 8:05, if that's okay. Be real. Anybody know there's like a new social media app called Be Real? Yeah. It's like what?
I know there's a radio host who likes to say,
So-
keeping it real.
So there's this new social media app which alerts you when to post a picture, and you're supposed to post it in real time. So a lot of kids are on that app where it's like, it tells you post your picture now, and so you're supposed to post a picture of what's going on in that moment. Now the problem is a lot of the kids, like, you can also extend the time when you post it, so they wait till like everything's perfect, and then they'll post it. So it's not being real anymore. Anyway, my niece tried to get me on that app for a while, and I was like, well, this isn't real. I don't want to post right now. It's not real. So I stopped posting. Anyway, but very important. Okay. I love these 2 verses. And someone mentioned this. Ellen mentioned this verse: to do what is right and just is more desired by the Lord than sacrifice. Meaning, sometimes in our culture, we get caught up in like the externals of like how to present something or making something beautiful, or, or everything has to be, the external wrapping has to be perfect, when really, I think the Torah wants that as well, but it wants us to have what's inside to be real, to be aligned with truth and something that's real. Another example is better a meal of vegetables where there is love than a fattened ox where there is hate. You can have a house full of riches. You can have all the riches. You can have all these friends who are following you, but if there's not real friendship, there's not real love, then you've lost. I mean, like, social media is like, I personally have like up to 5,000 friends on Facebook. In real life, I think I have 3 friends. Okay. And I'm one of them. And Hashem is one. No, but like my wife is one. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't mistake those friends for real friends. Facebook has defined that as friends. You have to know what's real in life. You have to know what's real for yourself in your life and be in line with what's real, and try to step beyond the externalities. I think that Mishlei is telling us that in these 2 verses, like, know what's real, what's true, and be in line with that. Now, I want to do one more in relation to ourselves and Hashem. You can kind of go back over some of this. This is the one that I try to live by: knowing Hashem in all of our ways. I love this text. This is what kind of guides me throughout my life. What does this verse mean? We have to, Hashem has guidance for us in all that we're doing. We have to try to find Hashem in what we're doing. So if you're speaking to somebody, when you're with them, try to see Hashem speaking to you. Also try to see what Hashem wants you to do in that moment. I guess, like, trying to find Hashem in the moment. Life, this is based on Rav Kook's explanation. Life presents us with many circumstances and experiences. And Rav Kook says in his text, like, try to find Hashem in what you're doing. So like, if you're praying, Rav Kook says that's where Hashem is. And try to find Hashem there at that moment. Or when you're learning, try to find Hashem in your learning. When you're helping someone, try to find Hashem when you're helping them. Try to be the best person you could be in that moment. Try to find Hashem in that moment. Similarly, if you're at work and you're focused on your work, try to find Hashem in that moment. Try to be the best person. Try to focus in that moment and find Hashem in that moment. This idea of trying to find Hashem in all your ways goes beyond specific mitzvot, beyond specific learning. It goes to all areas of like, try to be what Hashem wants you to be in all areas. And that should really guide us in all of our areas. So I think that's like That's like a general guidance in life. Try to like, what would Hashem do? That type of thing. Like, no, I'm giving the Jewish version of that. So that's like a little bit in terms of like guidance on different fronts. There's a lot more here. Let me just see if there's one more I can share with you, and then we'll get going. I'm not gonna do that as heavy. All right, I'm gonna leave it. Okay, here. I gotta talk about this for a second. 1 second, okay. We're good. This is the central idea in relation to ourselves. We mentioned self-respect and self-care. This verse says the life breath of man, or the neshama of the man, is the candle of God. So this is why we light, one of the reasons why we light a yahrzeit candle in the house of mourning. From this verse, from Mishlei, the candle of God is the soul of man. And you'll see that verse quoted in relation to the yahrzeit candle. I think this idea of seeing ourselves as having divinity in us is transformative. It means that we have to treat ourselves with dignity. We have to respect ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves and see others as well in that way, as not just people who are annoying you or bothering you on the road, rather people who have divinity in them. And if you see them in that manner, that could be a foundation for ethical behavior in relation between yourselves and them. So to summarize, there's a lot more here, but summarize, there are different, I think there are different, to summarize overall, Mishlei is a book of ethics. It's guidance for us. There are 31 chapters of like dense chapters, as you saw with chapter 21, lots of directives, lots of knowledge. You can go through this maybe on a Shabbos afternoon, we'll take one chapter and see what speaks to you, see what doesn't speak to you. We saw that you can learn in a topical way. I gave you some guidance for that in terms of anger. And in addition, there are many foundations for Jewish ethics in the text. I like to approach it from those 4 different avenues and how we relate to Torah, I relate to Hashem, I relate to ourselves, I relate to other people. And the directions that I highlighted a few for you, but there are many more to think about. And a lot of them align with what we mentioned in the very beginning of our class. So that's a little introduction to the book of Mishlei. This book is very deep and there's a lot more to learn, but we got a little bit of a taste for it. So thanks.
I'm going to go back to our class on Mishlei. And I want to go over just a few more foundations of Jewish ethics that we didn't go over together. And I felt it was unfortunate. And this is all about anger. Okay. So here is this idea of, this is from Mishlei. It all begins, I listed it like it all begins with fear of Hashem.
What do you mean by fear?
So that's the question. Yeah. So it says the beginning of wisdom is fear of the Lord, which is really interesting, right? Like, how do you become wise? You would think, well, you go study text, or you go find an expert scholar. But it says the beginning of wisdom is fear of God. What's the yirat Hashem?
Yeah.
Yirah can be translated as awe, can be translated as yirah also is like to see. To yirah, to see things on a deep level.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like I find this valuable because I feel like the openness to our tradition can lead to expansion of knowledge. Like if you're open to hearing things, not only will you hear new material, but your soul can like bring in new material. It's like when there's certain inner openness, there's a certain that's like the bridge between you and the tradition. There's certain yira, there's certain fear, there's certain reverence for tradition that allows the tradition to work in you. And so we're not just learning academic texts. We're not just reading. My grandfather, Alav Shalom, he used to tell me like he was amazed. He was once on a plane. He saw this like they say like maybe an Asian academic was reading the Talmud. And he asked him, he's like, you know, what are you doing? He's like, this is just fascinating material. It's like the Jewish people, they're very smart. My grandfather's like, that's really impressive. But like, it might not do that transformation if you don't have that component there of the fear. I'm not saying fear like be afraid. It's a certain reverence, a certain ability to receive and make space for the tradition. If you have that, the tradition can kind of work in you. And it's like almost like a spiritual way.
You can do us all a big favor.
Make it bigger.
Could you edit out the word fear from all of our literature and put in awe, which you really go, aha,
So like I think
and where you attach instead of run away?
So I'm not afraid of fear. That's like weird to say that, but like I think there's place for fear of God, like literal fear, not a fear that cripples you. That's not healthy
I
fear.
think that's what that says.
I don't think it's talking about
And it
that.
shouldn't be.
But
that way.
but like for instance, on Friday nights, you say, we'll come before you, be Yerava Fachad. We'll come before you with Yira and Fachad, which is fear. There is a place, there's Pachad Yitzchak. People oftentimes get uncomfortable with the idea that we have fear in our tradition. I think when it's used in, like we talked about in our character trait class, that different traits can be used positively and negative. When it's used in a negative way, it causes really bad things in religion, but can also create good things. If you have a certain natural fear, I mean, people were afraid of, for example, from a few 2 or 3 years, a year ago, or maybe from Nadine a day ago, fear of COVID. There was a certain fear that protected people. People believed in it. People were afraid of getting the disease virus, and that saved them. So same thing for Judaism. Like I'm not saying it to be, but there's a certain natural fear
And also
that you're
paralyzed.
afraid that your life won't be the same unless you do the mitzvah. It can be valuable. So I'm saying, so when it gets to a place of paralysis, I don't think that that's healthy. That's not healthy. Fear shouldn't paralyze us. Fear should be propel us to do good things. If it gets to a place of paralysis, I don't think that's healthy. That's not a good application of it. Yeah.
Fear is something to stay away from.
So what I'm arguing, what I try to argue in this class, which you saw that we broke the foundations of Jewish ethics into 4 categories: between us and Hashem, us and other people. Here's us and others. Each trait can be used for good and bad. That's my thesis, and I didn't make this up.
Yes.
I learned this from my rabbis as well, that you can take different traits and apply them in a good way and in a negative way. So I brought an example, like if COVID may create people to become paralyzed and make great too much anxiety, that can be unhealthy. If you have a good dose of fear that keeps you safe, that's a valuable thing. So when I see certain rabbis and I've been around some very big gedolim, some big rabbis in our generation, and I've seen how they treat the mitzvot. I've seen how they check out an etrog, seen how they pick out a lulav. It's a place of like trepidation, but it's not from a place of like they're not scared of God. They're not paralyzed. They're in love with it all, but they're afraid that it's not going to be as good as it could be, and that's something beautiful, I think.
And if you like to,
Yeah.
fear can be healthy.
So that was my argument, like what I was trying to offer as a foundation of Jewish ethics to
You
come.
want to talk about control, the fear, because today I was just reading a statistic, I don't know whether anybody else did, is the number of children who are afraid to go to school
Yeah.
and are totally paralyzed and are in psychiatric treatment.
Okay, so I don't want to go too deep down into that. I agree with you. I think that that there's negative sides to things as well. There's negative and positive, so we have to be careful. That's why I think it's not. When I first became more observant, I was kind of annoyed. Because like if you ask one rabbi, you get one answer. You ask another, you get this, and so many answers for everything. But you have to. There's a certain like stage where like things aren't always black and white in Judaism, and that can be annoying. But that can also be liberating in the sense that like you don't have a clear guide like every time fear is best. Or this is an attribute or a shortcoming. This trait, I don't think that that's the case. I think that every trait can be an attribute and a shortcoming. And I don't fill up each category, each column with certain traits. I think each trait can go in both directions. And so, what? Respect too. Respect's a valuable trait. Respecting
Fear of parents, not the being afraid of a parent, but being an expression of awe.
In
So,
awe of.
That's what I'm saying. I'm pushing back a little bit against that,
Fear.
in the sense that I agree with you. The highest level, Mishlei, you mentioned him, that book. He says there's 2 levels of yira. Yira is yirat Hashem. It's a very known like term in Judaism, fear of God. There are different levels. He says it's like a child with a parent. When a child grows up, they're afraid of their parent if the parent instills fear in them. As they get older, hopefully they'll have a certain reverence, respect, and awe in some respects, and that will enable them to like serve on a higher level. It's the same thing with us and God. When you're younger, it's unless you'll educate the children to like with like reward and punishment in some capacity. As you get older and you see things in like a more mature way, you do things out of awe, respect, reverence. But I would say, and Rob Cook says this as well. He says this, and therefore I say it. That like you never let go of a component of fear. There's a certain element of fear that can be helpful. It's okay if there's a little bit of fear of the day of judgment. I'm not saying that I'm here. You know me, hopefully. I don't speak in that way. I'm not fire and brimstone. But I do. If I say it doesn't exist, I'm not being honest to our tradition. So it exists. It's there. There's a certain element of that. And so there is that component that if you don't have that, you don't have like you're not tied in to our tradition in some capacity. So there's a place for it. But if it causes paralysis or it has negative side effects, something to be very careful, especially with control and religion. There's a lot of negative sides to it. Okay, so that's what I taught. That was one foundation, which is very interesting though. The beginning of wisdom is fear of the Lord. So we talked about the place of the fear of the Lord. Here's another text. Beginning with the fear of the Lord. So that's two texts. We talked about another foundation. We talked about this. Each one of these has. I brought a few proverbs from Mishlei that I thought were valuable in each of these categories: us and Hashem, us and others, us and Torah, us and ourselves. So us and Hashem, we talked about knowing Hashem in all of our ways. So I didn't get to go as deep into this as I wanted, but and I'm probably not going to do it again. But we got into that before. But I'll say to you one thing. I think this is a foundation of Judaism. You can find Hashem in all of your ways. It's not, and that's so complicated. And so bring us back to COVID. So when we had, it was very sad when we had to close our building here. We closed down the building when all the buildings closed. And I remember like we closed it down and we all left the building. It was like, and all of us were like, we were scared. We didn't know what to do. And no one really knew what to do religiously. Like you live your life going to Minyan, you live your life hearing your Chazan, the Kriyas Torah, and like you had to figure out, how do I find God outside of the shul? Of course, there are many ways to do it, but many people were creative a lot of different ways. But like you can find, a lot of people learn that you can find, maybe they learned it too much because some of the people haven't come back, but like you can find God everywhere. And for me at that time, like I was going for like a lot of nature walks. I'm sure a lot of others were doing that as well. I found a lot of serenity in that. And so it's not just in that though. In all your, I love this saying. Where is it?
Did you mean to put all those blank spaces?
No. The whole in all your ways, know God. Meaning, in everything you're doing, you can find Hashem or know God. You're at the supermarket. It sounds funny. It's like something mundane, but you can serve Hashem there as well. You're going there for what purpose? You're going there. You're with people around you. You can act a certain way. You can find Hashem in all kinds of places. I mean, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says, you can pray to Hashem everywhere. It's a similar thing. Like if you're in your bed and you can put your blankets over your head and you can talk to Hashem. You can walk on the street. You can talk to Hashem. People might stay very far away from you. But another trick when you're doing this is talk on your phone and talk to Hashem, but not really talk to anybody. I've done that before. So
We used to know the difference. We can't tell anymore.
but what I was trying to say is that you can find Hashem everywhere. Of course, there's places where Hashem is easier to access, like the Kotel in Jerusalem. But Hashem's really everywhere. And if you're attuned to that, that's the Hasidic mindset. Hasidut, as opposed to other streams which found Hashem strictly in the Beit Midrash, in the Torah, Hasidut says you can find Hashem everywhere. But obviously, it can be a dangerous approach because then you can start saying, "Oh, I'm finding Hashem," it's just in these sins or negative. You have to be careful. But our orientation as Jews would be to go wherever we are to try to find Hashem, try to find what Hashem wants from us, try to find what God's saying to us where we are, try to find how Hashem's speaking to us through other people. That's a very broad foundation of Jewish ethics. I think it's hinted to. I don't think this. Chassidut thinks this. There's a whole book in academic literature on Chassidut, which is called B'chol Derech Chesadehu. In all your ways, know God, because that's such a central theme in Hasidism. It's been a few. If you send me an email, I'll send you it's in here.
You made an incredible leap about 2 sentences ago.
What was the
Where,
lead?
where was that coming from? You can find, you said, oh, you have to be careful because you could find God, then maybe you need to
So-
go over to finding it in bad places.
So
Can you make that connection because it's in your head?
yeah, no,
I
so
don't know
there's,
what you
I didn't
meant.
make that, so this philosophy that God can be found in everything, we all, that's one statement. On the other hand, let's say someone is sniffing cocaine, or they're, I don't know, or they're doing the
Doing
committing
acid.
some sort of transgression or horrible, horrific a criminal act. Obviously, there'd be a limit to this. But within the confines of the Torah, then definitely the permitted areas of Judaism, permitted areas of life, that's a whole other topic in its own, like permitted areas. But in those areas, you can find Hashem, and Hashem speaking to us, not just in the centers of spirituality, but really in all of our ways. And we have to try to find Hashem. So it's like they're connected, like a dialectic between us and Hashem. So I think that that's a principle of Jewish ethics. Okay, I like this one as well. I love this one. I don't know if we talked about this, but you don't have to carry everything on your own. Did I tell you this like parable of the wagon? Did I ever tell you that one? It's a great parable of the Maggid of Dubno. He says that there was once this poor individual walking along the way with his possessions on his shoulder. That's all he had, and he was getting tired. He's fatigued. He's walking with, just trying to get to the next town. In the distance, he sees a wagon, very far off in the distance, and the wagon starts to get closer. And he's like, "Oh wow, this could be a messenger from God. Maybe I can get on the wagon and get to where I need to get." He's so tired. The wagon comes by. It's this nobleman. That's always like the story with the wagon. So he says, "Come on the wagon. I'll help you take a load off. I'll take care of you. I'll help you." She's like, "Thank God, I'm so tired. It's perfect timing." So he gets on the wagon. He sits down. He starts resting, and the wagon takes off. The driver takes off. A few minutes into the trip, he looks back and he sees that the person who's the poor individual, he's still holding on to his possessions on his shoulders. And he says, "Hey, buddy, take a load off. Literally, like take your stuff, put it down, relax. You're no longer walking, carrying on your own." He goes, "No, I would never want to burden you or cause extra weight to your wagon. I'll carry it for the rest of the way." And so that's the parable. The case that it's referencing is us and God. In our lives, there's a lot of areas which we're holding on to things, and we're carrying the weight we don't need to carry it on our shoulders. Sometimes if we allow Hashem in, we make space for Hashem, we make space for trust in Hashem, we don't need to carry as much as we can. There's certain things that you worry about that you think are so important, you realize a year later they were not important at all, or a day later. We carry a lot of anxiety, we carry a lot of worries, we carry a lot of things that are out of our control, and we're carrying them. Hashem has it, or it's not something you need to be carrying. We're carrying it. And so I think this is the foundation of Jewish ethics, or of like a Jewish belief, that Hashem, you can entrust your affairs to God, and your plans will succeed. I would make a caveat, like, in addition to the actions that you do and your hishtadlut, your part in the matter, at a certain point you can let go and know you've done what you have to do, and also trust that Hashem's going to help you. Like, we don't talk about God all the time, unfortunately, in more modern Jewish circles, but God, our tradition says it. You can turn things over to Hashem, have faith that Hashem can help you. Obviously, you have to do your part. But if we're only thinking about our part, then I think we're losing something. I was once telling all these stories. I was once at my adopted family in Israel, and they helped me. Like I would every holiday I used to go there, and they strengthened me a lot in my faith in Judaism and Hashem. And so this the matriarch, the head of the woman of the household, she's telling me a story how one time she was having such anxiety and pain, and there was this medication called Rescue. And she's about to take the medication. She goes, "What am I doing? I have this medication called Rescue, but I also have the opportunity to ask Hashem to help me and rescue me." Obviously, you have to take medication, but she was saying that we sometimes forget, we just rely on all the techniques that we have that are us, and how us manipulating or us trying to save ourselves. And there's areas we can also ask Hashem and bring Hashem in, list Hashem, and let go of some of the weight. Where that line is, I can't tell you. That's the Jewish thing where it's like, I can't give you a clear definition. But it definitely isn't that you have to carry all the weight all the time. That definitely is not that. I think that's what the Maggid of Duma is trying to say in that parable. So yeah.
Spiritual, I might have mentioned this in the previous class. It's the same lesson I've driven into my children the last couple of years. I do it with our Bet Tequila varsity lacrosse team. The only thing that you guys in life are in control of is your effort, whether it's school, lacrosse, or whatever. The Rabbanu Shalom is in charge of all of your results.
And I would add on something to that.
Please.
That thought, like the next stage with that thought that God is helping us, or God can help us, like, and trust your affairs, it can be very calming. That's what you're saying, but like I'm expanding.
But again, that's when an individual, to some people, their anxiety might be such, it's not comfortable.
Yeah, it doesn't.
What do you need? I'm not in charge.
Yeah.
I want, everybody wants to be
We
in
have to
charge.
do what we can, but at a certain point, if you believe, you believe and trust God, then it can relieve some anxiety. There's other stories to that. I'm gonna hope not there. So let's do a few more here. This is also a nice idea. For the commandment is a lamp, the teaching is a light, and the way to life is the rebuke that disciplines. So I want to focus on the first part. Kiner mitzvah v'torah or. This is such a beautiful. So Rav Kook is another, like one of my chief inspirations in Judaism. So he was the first chief rabbi of Israel, 1865 to 1935. I happen to know that because I taught him a lot. But so he says something like this. He says the Torah is supposed to be a light along your path. It's like a lamp or a candle, but it doesn't create the path for you. It says you're walking along the path. You need to see where you're going. It's a beautiful idea. He says the Torah, we're born with certain inclinations, we're born with certain natural tendencies. The Torah is not supposed to be, it's not like a tabula rasa where the Torah inscribes who you have to be. The Torah wants to take who you are and what you are and illuminate that and be a guide, like a light along your way. So I thought it's a beautiful idea. Like it's presenting the Torah as a lamp. When you need a lamp, we need a light. When you're walking in a dark space. So Rav Kook says, you're supposed to be walking. You're supposed to be going. You're supposed to be yourself. You're supposed to bring yourself into Judaism. And the Torah shows you how to elevate that, how to find your path with while you're already walking. I thought it's just like a beautiful idea because I don't know, when I first became more observant, before I found Rav Kook, I felt kind of stymied. I felt kind of uncomfortable because there were all these models for what I had to be. You have to be this, you have to be that, you have to sit here in these amount of hours, or you have to, obviously there are some expectations, you grow in Torah, mitzvot, etc. But like we're supposed to bring Rav Kook saying you're supposed to bring your unique abilities, like Samson, your unique talents into the Torah and have the Torah guide you in those. Instead of the Torah dictating who you should be and what you should be, it's accounting for who you are, it's helping you illuminate and guide you along that path to make yourself the best you. I just think that's like a switch in terms of creating you. It doesn't create you. It's supposed to help you bring out your best self. So I thought that was beautiful. So this is between us and the Torah, this idea of Torah. We talk about all or nothing. We talked about that. So I'm going to leave that. This is the same idea. Train a lad in the way he ought to go. So you should teach your children or your students based on their own derech. Based on their own path. You have to read your student, you have to read your children and see how to speak to them. You can't speak the same way to each student, to each child. You all know this, obviously. There's different languages, different ways of, and so the same thing goes for us in Judaism as well. We're all different. We all have to find our path. And the Torah is supposed to illuminate that path for each of us in our unique way. So I think that's that idea. We talk about each tree can be used for good and for bad. This is interesting. So it's like a funny lazy bones. There's a lot against laziness in Proverbs. Maybe like because King Solomon maybe once like a king, he had like all the allures of being like it's very easy for me to be lazy in his lifestyle. So I don't know, but so go to the ant. This is from Mishlei, Proverbs. Go to the ant, study its ways and learn. Without leaders, officers, or rulers, it lays up its stores during the summer, gathers in its food at the harvest. The food at the harvest. So this could be, you can learn this in many different ways. For me, what I take it from this is that, and this is the big one, that everything has something to teach us. Kind of connected to like God speaks to you in different ways, but like, there's a statement in Pirkei Avot, Chapters of the Fathers, which says that everything has its place. Don't scorn anything. In my book, I write about this. If you want to find that page. So it says everything don't scorn anything because everything has its place and everything has its hour. I mean, like everything has a side that's good to it. It's just not always applied, not always like manifested in the right way. So like, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say you're I don't know, you're talking to someone who's in your workspace or something and they're triggering you or they're frustrating you. So you might be seeing one aspect of them, but there are other aspects there that are positive. Or that aspect that's bothering you might be positive when it's applied in a different place. What I'm trying to say is like a perspective in Judaism, like a more mystical approach that I connect to, is being able to see things as having good aspects within it. And I would add on to that, that's the divinity in things. And so Judaism, like a more mystical approach, would say it's not just about always seeing the glass as half full, because that's like a positive way. No, that's the truth. If there's divinity in different things, then when you see the divinity in it, you see the goodness in individuals, you're seeing like the goodness, you're seeing the dominant, the godliness. And so you're not just seeing the glass half full, you're seeing the truth. And so I think that idea, like you go to an ant. Ants are annoying. They can be annoying. Sometimes you exterminate your house to get rid of the ants or whatever, or they're just you walk over them or whatever. But like, go to an ant and learn something. There's a lot to learn from ants. There's a lot learned from everything, from nature. And so this whole world has a lot to teach because everything was created by God and has godliness in it. So I think that's like a very God-infused approach. I think it's hinted to here. We're almost done, but we did this one. This is Be Real. We talked about that a little bit. We also talked about that. Okay. I think so. I don't know if we talked about this. Buy truth and never sell it. I don't know if we talked about this, but my Rabbi Cohen, when I talked about him once in some sermon or whatever, but when I first came to Israel, he like took me under his wing, and I remember like he was able to get they talk about like food can like be a connector. So he used to like buy us these like really good sandwiches at this like corner store, and that made us like really connect to him. And then we were able like to share all kinds of stuff. So he used to tell me like that he emphasized this idea that honesty is like, it's like top. Like he used to had a rabbi, I forget his rabbi's, Rabbi Starr in Skokie. He said that his rabbi said like he was careful, like to be extra careful, like to like be careful with lying. Like it's very important to like try to be as honest as you can and as like straight and narrow and straight and like honest. So buy truth and never sell it. Like if you're going to buy something, you're going to buy things. There's certain things that you buy and you exchange and you sell. This is something you should buy, you should invest in, and not get rid of. It'll always pay dividends. Being honest, being straight, being like living an honest life. You feel certain dignity, a certain comfort with yourself, ability to be comfortable in your own skin when you're telling the truth, and people feel it. And so when you're around honest people, you feel a certain security, a certain safety, and we want to emit that energy to other people as well. We want them to feel comfortable with us. We want to be straight and honest as much as we can, and to continue with that. Keep buying those stocks, keep investing, and don't sell. You know, they say like don't hold on to like a loser, get rid of like loser stocks. Like that's not like buy it, keep investing in it, and never sell it. Keep growing in that. The more you do it, the more you feel good about yourself, the more you'll feel comfortable with yourself, and the more you feel you'll have your dignity and you're able to be proud of yourself, like when you lay your head on your pillow. And so I think that's this idea, like buying it and never selling it. Number one, invest in it, and number two, don't get rid of it. Like keep expanding on that. So those are some validations of your faith. I could go in, there's a lot more, I had like all these other topics that we could also talk about, but I think that I'm happy we got through some of those foundations of Jewish faith. So that's kind of concludes our night and our course. Here's some honorable mentions, but we're not gonna go into them. So I just wanna thank you all.